That's okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really honored to be presenting this really exciting event today. If you don't know who I am Ali Kravitz. I am the CEO and founder of Bronx Switch Headquarters. We are a spiritual shop and metaphysical co-working space. We're the only one in the Bronx like this, so your support really means a lot to us. We've gone through a transition recently. We used to be a retail and co-working space, but we've had the wisdom and the foresight to expand our co-working capabilities and move our retail online. So I want to encourage you to check out our website if you haven't already, bronxswitch.com, to get to know more about us. And if you're looking for our books, our tarot decks, our crystals, candles, teas, all of that good stuff, you can find that on the website. What you can look forward to experiencing more of here are events and workshops and classes that are geared to helping the community learn more about spirituality and magic from all different types of traditions. So definitely get on our mailing list. If you haven't already, you can do that really easily on the iPad at the front door. That way you know about all of the different events and programming that we're having here. This is my personal mission. I was born and raised on this block in the building next door. Okay. Yes. And things like this, I've always had to travel to the Lower East Side or Brooklyn or even out of the state to experience. And I want to change that. There are so many folks learning about spirituality and magic. There are so many people of color tapping back into their ancestral practices. And we need a safe space where we can learn about those things from people who are experienced, who have authenticity and integrity, who we can trust, to lead us back into a knowing that, has fallen away a little bit. So that's a part of our personal mission. Your support really means a lot. I'll talk a little bit more at the end about becoming members here and different ways in which you can utilize this space for your own learning, your own growth. But for now, I want to turn the stage over to our esteemed guest of the afternoon. I'm sure you all know Juju. I'm sure I don't even really have to introduce, but just in case, I want to make sure everyone knows that Juju is a spiritual healer, an ocean priestess, an author, and the host of a little bit of Juju. I always say little bit of Juju because of the song. It's a little Juju, right? Okay, Little Juju podcast, and that podcast has done wonders for all of us, probably, right? Winner of the iHeartRadio Podcast Awards in 2020, okay? For just being one of the best podcasts out there on African spirituality. And I don't know about y'all, but if you're relying on Google, it's crazy, right? There are so many different villages, so many different traditions, so many different languages when we're talking about the origins of African spirituality, and trying to piece it all together for yourself with what you're learning in books and the internet can be so difficult. So I know we were all so grateful when Juju's podcast came along to be able to have somebody just break these things down, especially for those of us who are African American or are part of the diaspora and don't have a connection to Africa ourselves. To have someone bridge that gap has been incredible. So I'm so honored, and I know we were all so excited when she decided to put her wisdom and knowledge into a book that we can carry with us, share with our friends, and really even further digest this material. So very, very grateful about that. Juju is going to treat us to a brief reading from the book. She's going to share some of the book with you so that you get excited and know what you're going to experience as you read it on your own. And then we'll open it up to some questions. So if you have any questions, just hang on to them, make a note of it, and we will move into a Q&A portion when Juju is done with her reading. Okay, so be ready with your questions. All right, everybody? The bathroom is right behind me with the coat check. Like I said, feel free to help yourself if you need to during it. And if you have any questions, I'll be here. Nuri is our shop witch on duty today. Nuri is also here to help you if you need anything. Thank you so much for being here.
You're so sweet. You've been amazing to work with. And I just also speak blessings and rain and money and coin and some more over that more people learn about it, more people are inspired to be here, and that just money and opportunity to pour into the space because of your attention. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, well, hello everyone. Thank y'all for coming to the BX, the Bronx. Bronx, like I don't hear or something, but So I just want to do a brief reading of the intro. I think it's an intro, so it sets the tone of really who I am, what my work is about, sort of what inspired me and moved me to, be, Juju Bay and how I interpret that. And a lot of that comes from my upbringing, having been raised Catholic and gone to Catholic school primarily for most of my life. But, you'll see how that kind of prepared me to be a witch because I was a girl. So don't tell the Catholics I said that. Okay, so we're gonna read the intro and then we can just kind of talk through it. Okay, so the beginning. This is page 1. When people ask me, when did you start your spiritual journey? I feel the multiple paths I've walked in my life illuminated me. Even as a child, I knew that spirit existed. Concepts like God, spirituality, ceremony, ritual, and even ancestors were always present in my forms of worship, whether I was in the church or in the Baha'i temple. I remember praying to God that my grandmother's car would start up again when it broke down outside the house, and it did. I remember being 8 years old and intuitively laying my hands on my best friend's stomach when she had a bellyache, and her exclaiming, "Wow, that worked." Whether it was my African naming ceremony as a baby, facilitated by my Aunt Myrtle, or my chats to my pop-pop after he passed, I knew something bigger was there for me. As far as I can tell, my spiritual journey existed before I even had the language to describe it as such. My journey has always lived alongside me. Allendale Evanston Avenue is where I received my introduction to what it means to be a devout worshiper, an intentional prayer, and a ritualized Black human. My experience as a good Black Catholic girl started in a large gray brick building under a gold dome that would sparkle in the sun, as if the Holy Spirit herself had pursed her lips to kiss it. St. Bernardine's Roman Catholic Church, the all-Black congregation perpetually led by a white head priest, was located in the southwest Baltimore, Maryland community of Edison Village. The big gray brick seems to tower over the brown row homes and my little brown body as my father and I entered the side door nearest the cornerstone every Sunday morning around 11:ish. St. Bernardine's, my Black Catholic haven, gave everyone the Roman Catholic aesthetic that we came for. Beautiful stained glass windows and lingering scents of frankincense and myrrh welcomed devoted adults and bored children alike. Eventually, the white Jesus paintings that graced the walls were repainted to a dark-skinned man with locks to better mirror the parishioners who filled the church in this all-Black neighborhood. Now, St. Bernardine's was not the church where I non-consensually accepted the teachings of the Catholic Church to wash me of my sins that I was apparently born with as an infant, but in order baptized. But it is the church that I attended for over 10 years of Christmas concerts and early Mass until I decided I wanted to be Baptist, and later Buddhist, then Baha'i, and then a witch. It is where I learned that reciting the same prayers was basically chanting, and that body posture matters when addressing the spirit. Stand, sit, kneel, and eat. St. Bernardine's Roman Catholic Church was where my Black church experience began. Believe it or not, Baltimore has quite the active Black Catholic community. If you're unfamiliar with my culturally unique hometown, Baltimore has the 5th largest population of African Americans in the United States. As seen in our crack cracking and our dirt bikes that are hardly ridden in the dirt, Black culture is fully infused into what defines Baltimore, even the Roman Catholics. Of course, Baltimore is no New Orleans, Louisiana. We don't have as many Catholic schools, churches, or overall Catholic cultural imprint as does New Orleans. But we Baltimoreans have quite the expansive history of firsts regarding Catholic roots in the United States. In 1789, Pope Pius VI appointed Father John Carroll of Upper Marlboro, Maryland, the first Catholic bishop in the United States, and selected Baltimore as the seat of the first diocese, which is basically a church district that is overseen by a bishop. This is like Baltimore being the first state in the Catholic world, followed by New Orleans in 1793. Baltimore is also home to the Oblate Sisters of Providence, who are the most successful Roman Catholic sisterhood in the world established by women of African descent. In 1829, these primarily Haitian Caribbean nuns founded a school for Black Catholic girls, which became the foundation of St. Francis Academy, the oldest continuously operating school for Black Catholic children in the U.S. St. Francis Academy remains an active Catholic school in Baltimore today. Baltimore would never be left out of the conversation of Catholicism, and this conversation was my reality until I turned 18. If y'all know Angel Reese, the basketball player, she went to St. Francis. Okay. I attended Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade. I was very well versed in what it meant to confess my sins to a priest, use prayer beads to set my intentions, and celebrate a bunch of elevated dead people, or saints, by leaving them offerings and prayers on feast days. Sex outside of marriage was sinful, being gay wasn't discussed, masturbating was selfish, and the behavior of some local priests was questionable at best. I went to mass during school, received grades in religion classes, and prayed all the time. Faith was a big portion of my childhood identity. Even as a child, I lived and breathed every ritual as if my life depended on it, because my soul did it. I never considered that there could be more to my existence outside of Catholicism until about 8th grade, when it was time for confirmation. If you're unfamiliar with Catholic rites, at around 14 years old, most good Catholic children move forward with the ceremony of confirmation, which confirms your belief in the Catholic teachings and means that you fully accept Jesus as your Savior. Catholic children are typically baptized as infants, so confirmation is our somewhat consensual choice into the faith. You go to classes to prepare for confirmation, you may have some additional praying, and even get to choose a new Catholic name for yourself after one of the saints. I believe mine was going to be Beatrice, or maybe it was Maria. But as my friends prepared for their confirmation, picked out their confirmation names, and their parents bought new white dresses or black suits for the ceremony, I decided that I didn't want to go through with this particular rite. Even as a preteen, something inside of me decided that I didn't want to confirm my belief in the Catholic teachings. I did still identify as a Catholic, but I felt that if I was confirming something, then I should be sure, right? I was only 14, so I didn't feel like I could confirm anything besides what I was wearing on our outer uniform days at the school dance. Now, as an adult, I understand this as my body, higher consciousness, always guiding me to the traditions that felt safest and most comfortable, even if I didn't realize that yet. This was my first step in rejecting the status quo and the expectations surrounding my spiritual identity. At 14 years old, I knew that there was more to my spiritual life than what I'd experienced so far. Now, although I was a Catholic child, baptized, churched, and schooled under the tenets of the Roman Catholic Church, I was blessed to have spiritual interactions with family and friends that consisted of a cocktail of Christianity. My paternal grandmother, with whom I spent much of my childhood in Emerson Village, was born and raised Pentecostal, holiness to be exact. She later converted to African Methodist Episcopal, AME. Then there was my mother's side of the family, which was originally Baptist. My best friend Alice was also Baptist, and her church eventually became my church home. She lived right up the street from me in Southwest Baltimore, and as an only child, I often favored her and her sister's company more than just my own. My father and my granddaddy, who gave me my Alabamian and Caribbean ancestry, were devout Catholics. My father directed the choir at St. Bernardine's and often played the bongos too, while my mom was a choir Catholic, who eventually left the church while I was in middle school. My mom remarried my bonus dad, whom I never have known as religious, but definitely spiritual in many senses, which I credit to his Louisiana and Chattanooga roots. My maternal grandmother converted to Lutheran, and I'm not sure if I ever saw her husband, my pop-pop, step foot in the church for anything beyond the major events such as baptisms and funerals. And one of the paternal family churches is AME, while the other paternal side is Pentecostal from South Carolina, which I used to visit every summer growing up. So if you can't tell, I've been churched all the way around. I've sat in every kind of Christian denomination setting you can imagine. And although I no longer identify with any of these ranges, there's a strange way that spirit moves in these spaces that prepared me to be the bad bitch, witch, voodoo, Orisha, Juju lady that I am today. It's funny how spirit moves. The thing about Catholicism is that once you leave, you see how ritualized, ceremonial, and witchy it really is. Don't tell them I said that. I didn't learn about candle magic from a wicked lady or a New Age spiritualist on YouTube. I learned it, at least initially, from the Catholic Church. The concepts of honoring deities and reaching out to the dead to intercede on my behalf was something I learned from Catholicism. To this day, St. Anthony, the patron saint of lost items, was, and still is, one of the first spirits that I call on to help me to find my wallet or my missing cowrie earrings. I often wonder how and why he still blesses my non-Christian hands. The ideas of the Supreme Mother, in other words, concepts of divine femininity and healing through the maternal, that I've come to understand within African diasporic spiritual systems, were shown to me first through the exaltation of Jesus' mother, Mary, to whom we prayed on a spiritual necklace of sorts that the Catholics call a rosary. You see, Catholics taught me about ritual. Holiness folks taught me how to shout and how to see beyond my physical eyes. Pentecostals taught me how to dress and move before the Spirit. Baptists taught me how to pull out a spirit through a song and a hand clap. The Lutherans taught me reverence and to be still. The Catholics taught me how to hide in plain sight. Catholics taught me how to feed the spirits. Catholics informed me of my beginnings of how to be a witch. I must note, however, that Catholicism has quite the messy and traumatic past and present. In many ways, this religion in particular has been an embarrassment to Christians and non-Christians all over the world. Catholicism's relationship to plagiarism, rape, human trafficking, colonialism, and the theft of ancient African religion is still an undercurrent of its horrible history and active present. I think this amalgamation of spiritual trauma has informed much of my own spiritual, physical, and emotional trauma. I was a child immersed in the confusing world of what it meant to be a little Black Catholic girl who also thinks she likes girls, in an extremely historic location for Catholic history. The abuse I witnessed as a child quite literally touched my family, teachers, and classmates, as people that I loved and knew were survivors of Catholic guilt, shame, and sexual trauma at the hands of pedophilic priests. Catholicism, with its layered functions, is a big part of why it's hard for me to trust my own elders, spiritual community, and sometimes even my own ancestors. It is part of how I know that religious spaces, regardless of denomination, can be breeding grounds for violence. However, this same violence that I witnessed taught me how to be a good spiritual practitioner. It taught me the value of protecting oneself spiritually and physically. And perhaps that protection is not always from some large, unexplainable force like a devil, but from those who purport to be the angels in your own spiritual communities. It showed me that what we deem evil can thrive when it is backed by community, political powers, and intentional prayers. It was my first true understanding of spiritual warfare and the amount of control religious leaders hold throughout the entire world. Catholicism taught me that not every ritual is good, not every word is sacred, and not every spiritual house will be your home. I'm going to skip over to page 8, the last paragraph. If you've come to this book today, welcome. Maybe you've come because you, like me, were indoctrinated under a system that didn't work for you, but you always knew there was more to the story than what you were being told. Perhaps you're deep into an African or African diasporic tradition, but seeking to ground yourself in what brought you to that tradition. Perhaps you're curious about what voodoo is, or are still trying to understand who the Orisha are and what place they may have in your life. Maybe you don't know, but you felt the tug to go deeper and to look no further than into your own spirit to connect you with something else, something divine. Regardless of what unique reasoning you have, may this be a ball on your journey. The beginning chapters of this book cover definitions, who the ancestors are, why they are important, and other historical examples regarding the importance of ancestral veneration and the process of returning to Africana spiritual systems as Black people. This aspect of spirituality is vast, and developing some kind of grounding in it is important before we move on to the next section. In the latter parts of the book, we'll discuss the the mechanics or the how-to of engaging in these traditions. We'll cover concepts such as altar building, spirit communication, spiritual gifts, and rituals. I realize that everyone is always excited to jump into the rituals first, but please, take time to process the historical and cultural information this book includes too. It'll make your juju pop even more. On top of that, I'll provide questions, exercises, and journal prompts so that you can take note of what you're experiencing as you absorb this text. So work that third eye and get into habits of better rituals for yourself. I'll also be sharing personal stories about my spiritual journey, along with the ancestral tea that my spirits have been sharing with me throughout the past few years. Whatever your reason for picking up this book, you felt something calling you home to yourself and to your people. And all I can say is that you've taken that first step. Then you've already done the hardest part, listening. I encourage you to keep listening throughout this book. Take notes on what comes up for you, and stay open to the transformative powers of our ancestral voices. I'm excited for you. So I just wanted to open the space with that. It was actually really nice for me to reread the book again and just to remind myself of what I said. I was like, what kind of hate with that? Yeah. Bars. So now I just kind of want to talk. If you have any questions or specific parts that I read through that were resonating with you or things that were coming up for you, I'm just curious to hear.
Juju.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Gabe Soriano, Bronxite, lifelong. Thank you for being here, bringing this, and of course the community. When did you have this longing to start documenting and birthing this book? How long ago? And tell us about the journey of starting to structure it for yourself.
Let's see. So I probably started to actually get inquiries from publishing houses and publishing companies in 2020, late 2021, 2022. But I always knew that I wanted to write a book, but I didn't. I said this to all my shows. I felt like books were for people who were grown and know what they're talking about. And I don't feel grown yet, nor do I. I think I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. So I wasn't really prepared to write the book yet because I didn't feel grown and like I know what I'm talking about. I'm still a baby in this way. And so it wasn't until maybe the third or fourth publishing house said, write a book and write it with us. I was like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be writing that. So I talked to my ancestors and my spirits, a lot of my elders, and they're like, yeah, baby, write the book. So it wasn't until I really got pushed into it. It wasn't like, okay, I'm ready. I was forced to write a book. My spirits were like, it's time for you to say what you have to say. And so I think it was challenging. It's difficult. It takes a lot of discipline to write a book. I'm writing 4 pages a day, every day. That's what my mentor, Arthur Flowers, who was a Juju writer, was telling me to do. But I think that the podcast actually was nice. I have a podcast called A Little Juju Podcast, as Alex said, and it started in 2018. So I think a lot of the book is actually structured around things that I've been saying since 2018, that I've been documenting. And I think that that's a big part of A Little Juju is a part of the book of Juju. Like I don't know if I would have the book if I didn't have that sort of oral archive of the spiritual traditions. Yeah. So even though I wasn't intentionally saying like I've archived the spiritual traditions of the 21st century with A Little Juju, I think that's informed me to realize that I did know some things and that I had things to say and that I've done research and because I just was doing it. I wasn't doing it for any kind of anything. I just wanted to share knowledge and I love to research about the spiritual traditions of our ancestors. What makes me excited. So that's how it happened. But I actually wrote the book pretty quickly. Probably wrote it in about 7 to 8 months. But that's because I was filming a TV show when I should have been writing. And I thought I could do both. I couldn't. So when I wrapped the show, I was like, okay, I have to write now. It's playtime is over. And that is how the book of Juju is. Hey, Juju.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. Like, so I feel like my biggest question is okay in the forefront. So you were naturally guided to help others on their journey through your process of documenting your podcast and now your book. What does it mean as far as like accessibility wise? Now that you went from starting vocally to writing your book, like how do you feel the impact will expand from like the podcast to the book now? It has been out for a few 3-4 months now. Yeah. So how do you feel about the expansion of like the accessibility? Because I also personally, just an example, I started learning sign language recently because I'm a poet, and so I started thinking about okay, certain people aren't going to be able to hear my words. So what are other ways that I can reach more people? So how do you feel about it being more accessible?
Yeah, that's a big part of being pushed to write the book as well. From an accessibility standpoint, wanting people to be able who can't hear my voice, and that's actually been, I won't say a critique of my show, but I actually have had people who are deaf who have said, "I'm so sad I can't engage in your work because I know it's good. I love your tweets, I love your posts,
Right,
and I can't engage with your work." And so that's why I do have someone who is transcribing all of the podcast episodes for that reason. So I'm working on that. And I'm not using AI to do it, so it's taking longer. But that's happening. So yeah, I that's a big part of this too, is that other people will be able to engage. And also everyone's not a podcast person. Everyone doesn't know how to do all of that. This is for people who, and people told me I'm giving this to my mom. Like, I'm giving this to my grandmother. Me and my grandmother talk about your book. My grandma ain't listening to the podcast, but like she has the book. So I think even beyond like, disability, accessibility, and also just books reach different people. Different people, read. It's just a whole new market, and this is its own energy. This is its own spirit. People may not want to hear me talk. They may not want to hear me talk about the things I say and cuss and be salacious. I mean, I cuss in here, but like this is its own. You don't have to hear me or project it.
You can receive it in your own way, but it's your word.
Exactly.
Okay.
People can receive it in their own intimate way. Without me interjecting in a particular way that happens with podcasts, which is why some people don't like that. So it's been really nice to see how the book of Juju, like she's her own, I would say she's her own girl, like she's growing up. I never know where she's gonna be. People on the train, they send me pictures like someone's reading a book on the train, someone is over here, someone is, I'm just like, oh, she's just outside, like, wow. So it's remarkable. Like I'm just excited to see what she continues to do. And she's like surprising me because she has her own vibe, her own spirit, her own energy. So yeah, thank you.
Especially when she dramatizes in the Audible version. The Audible?
Yes, that too.
That's gonna come, right?
It's out. Thanks for bringing that up. There is an audio version as well.
Awesome.
You spoke?
Yes, and I'm reading. Yes.
Awesome.
I am reading. For those who like the audio.
I have a question, but I have a comment to what you were saying. I also think too the book is really powerful because we're from Baltimore and where literacy rates are just very low. Where like people just have a hard time reading. People are intimidated by reading. And I think the beautiful thing about reading the book of Juju is that the language is so accessible. It's like language that you would hear in the streets but also at Harvard. Like the disparities between the language that you offer aren't like very fast. Like it's very digestible, it's very easy to understand. Like you speak your language very well, and I think your language really just spills out to everyone else in a very comprehensive way.
Yeah, that's a big part of this. Yeah, I wanted it to be, and that's been one of the greatest comments that I get is like, it was so easy for me to understand and read. Like I didn't feel intimidated by the words. I didn't feel like it wasn't for me, but also didn't feel like it was like trying to be done down for me. It was just like easy. It was accessible, and I wanted to write it like how I speak.
Yeah, audiobook you get that Baltimore accent.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's just where she don't have.
Just a little bit.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's kind of random, but I think it relates.
Okay.
So, were you always a vivid dreamer, like sleep-wise? Like, because Because I know you talk about certain dreams that, you know, but I'm like, were you always, and do you know how to call dreams to you? Because I feel like I'm not dreaming enough. That's a great question.
I was not always a vivid dreamer. I was not always, you know, I provided some examples of how I was a spiritual child, but I wasn't someone who was like seeing the dead and waking up in the middle of the night. I saw granddad. That wasn't me. I was a regular girl. I was not having prophetic dreams or anything. I would do little things here and there. So I was a regular child. And so it wasn't until my adulthood that these gifts that I have developed and very rapidly. I don't think I would have been able to handle the dreams and all of that when I was younger because I was just going through so much as a young child in Baltimore, you know, just the levels of just stuff that's happening around me within my own home, within the church. Like, it was a lot of trauma. So I wouldn't have been able to, I think, fully digest and receive the information from my ancestors in the way that I do now. And so it wasn't until I was an adult, you know, I talk about the dream in the book that they showed me to where I was like, okay, I have to pay attention to something. I need to do something. I have a calling over my life. Now, currently, I have so many gifts. This is ridiculous. But it's just like, where did this come from? Like, they're not that old. My gifts are not that old. But I can call dreams to me. But often when I ask for them to come, they don't show up in that day or that hour. But like when my grandmother passed, as she was dying, I said, girl, just come see me in a dream. I don't care. If you want to go now, whatever. But if you have, just promise me you will come to see me. And she didn't come to see me for maybe 3 or 4 months. But I thought she would come. She died later that night. So I'm thinking, oh, she's going to come to me tonight. And then she never came. A month later, never came. I was like, now she just like Ellisine. And then eventually she came, and she just keeps coming. So I think with calling dreams, that it's possible to do so, but like our timeline and their timeline is just very different. And so we have to be patient in what we are expecting our ancestors to do. My grandma was like, I'm not, girl, I just died. Like, can I breathe? Like, I'm getting my wings. Like, so, and then she came, now she won't stop coming. So,
Wow. Okay. Oh, that's a great.
I have one. We are a queer safe space in the Safe Space Alliance. That's really important to me as a queer person. And you mentioned in your introduction about LGBTQ issues just not being talked about in the Black community, in religious spaces, particularly Christian spaces. And so I'm wondering, as somebody who is learning and teaching about African spirituality, what do you think the connection between that and perhaps a better understanding of like queer presence and queer issues is? I feel like African spirituality embraces queer people and recognizes that we've existed, that we've always existed, and that we're like a part of the fold of how humans present in the world, which is different from perhaps some of the Western religions and how they look at queer people. And so do you see a connection between what you're sharing with the world, what you're teaching, and with helping people to embrace and understand like queer folks? Yeah.
What you're saying is right. Like, there definitely is a connection with Africana spirituality and an innate understanding of queerness. However, because of colonialism, because of westernized doctrine, even if you go to the continent of Africa, you may not see that clearly and indirectly. Because I never want to purport that, like, okay, we go to Africa, like, it's not homophobic. Like, no, there are actually some countries that have laws against homophobia where they can kill you. But that is not the indigenous way. The indigenous way, and you see this through examples within the Orisha, with this just gender fluidity.
Yes.
You see this in Wolof, the language where there's no gender he, she in Wolof. There's no gender he, she in Yoruba either. So you see all of these remembrances that actually do very clearly show us that like this gender ways that we exist and live now is not the African way, but the indigenous African way. And so that is what I really try to lead with and remind people of, like regardless of the tenets of you know, the harsh tenets of Christianity that have impacted even some Africana traditional systems as well. Like nothing is untainted. Like we just have to remember, nothing has been untainted. Even if it's the original, nothing has been untainted because we live in a patriarchal, capitalist.
You gotta read the lines.
Yeah, so
for sure.
But if we're honest and really sit with ourselves and really sit with understanding the history and research, we see so many examples of what we identify as queerness today, but I put it in quotes because queerness was not a word. You know, it's just, we've had to separate ourselves to then lift up ourselves in this context. But traditionally, that wasn't necessarily, you didn't need to do that. You were just a person. Like a person, are you farming? Are you melding the metals? Welding the metals? You know, what is your purpose? That part of our identity didn't matter. But it matters in this context, sure. So I always just urge people to kind of remember, what do you think it was before this? Like before someone told you who you had to be, how you had to show up. And this is across sexuality. This is for gender too. I mean, how we even see ourselves and gender ourselves. You know, did it matter? Does it have to matter as much as we, whatever, these roles that we have? Do I align with this role or do I not align with this role? How can I live in alignment with or in disalignment with that role? Because I didn't put that role on myself. So it's that constant questioning that I think we can do with Africana systems. And I had a podcast episode about it. I wish I could plug it. I can't remember the name of it. But I go through a book, multiple books. It's called The Gendering of Women by Oye Ronke. And then there was Homosexualities in Africa. Like, there's books on this.
Right.
That's the point. There's research. There's books that exist that show, if we want to understand queerness, we can see examples of this from indigenous context on the continent. You just have to read.
Right.
You know. 1, 2.
Oh, I'm not. Am I one?
No.
Yeah, so I was thinking more about like your cocktail of Christianity and the different religions, sectors you were raised around. And yeah, I never had the privilege of being raised Catholic. But I was in the AME church a little bit, just a little bit. And so yeah, I guess I'm wondering how your family responds. Is there pushback when you talk about like African traditional religions, the ancestors, and even like, can you like not access some ancestors who like maybe didn't believe in that when they were like physically here? Is that like, you gotta kind of try to convince them like, oh, come on, like,
Right.
Yeah.
Great questions. The first one, was there pushback when I talk about the ancestors? Not really. But I think I got the pushback early. I got the pushback when I decided to not be confirmed. You know, and I think that happened in 8th grade. So my family was already like, oh, okay, she's just vibing. Great. And so I think since then, they always expect me to not go along with the norm. So I haven't really had to deal with that in this iteration. They understand it. My mom has an altar. My father was quite conservative, Catholic, understands more and is asking questions, but, oh yeah, that's that Yoruba. Like, he starts to, you know, I think I've opened the realm for my parents, actually, to ask more questions about their ancestors and think more critically about things that their grandparents did, which has been really interesting for me, how they are learning and processing this information through me, and then I get to learn more, you know, through them. So yeah, I think they've already gone through the shock, so we're okay with that. The second question about if some of our ancestors who did not practice African traditional religion, maybe they were Christian, maybe they were Muslim, do they want to be contacted? And that's a valid question. I think a lot of times in readings, they're like, I come from, strict, I come from a strict Muslim family, like, I want to get a reading, but are they going to come? Yes, they're going to come. And I think they come for different reasons. One is because when people die, they learn some new things. They're not always holding on to the same exact beliefs that they had about them. Some of them are, let me be clear. But in my experience with the dead, when they die, they realize, like, I think they're just kind of going through like, oh, I can still hope and they can see it. Like, I think they're just kind of learning a new life because when they die, they have a whole new experience of what they kind of life. So they learn the rules and regulations of what it means to be in the spiritual realm or the heavens or whatever you want to call it. And so, even though they may have thought that, divination or connected to spirit while they were living could have been evil or bad, when they're getting there, they're like, well, we got opinions and thoughts. We see what's going on. How are we supposed to tell you? Oh, we can tell them through divination. That's not bad. I'm just talking to my baby. So they come, they speak all the time. A second piece of this is, I read a lot of people who tend to come from a Christian background and strong Christian families. And a lot of times their ancestors are communicating with them, but they're communicating through the Bible and other Christian sort of relics. But the people who are coming to readings are often rejecting these forms of information for valid and various reasons. But I'm like, yo, grandma is telling you to open Psalms 144 to deal with your asshole neighbor. And I know you're not Christian, but that's how she's communicating because that's what she knew. So if you might need to dust that Bible off and just say Psalm 144 just so that you can address this issue because that's how she's trying to coach you. So I always am telling people, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Like if that's the thing that you need, if that's the tool that you're getting, if you desire, be open to what those tools are. Like the Bible is a tool. Like it can be used for whatever intention that you want it to be used for. And our ancestors understand that and they understood that. So yes, they will come, but sometimes they're communicating through things that we don't always desire for them to communicate through. And I'm not going to say that means that you have to. I choose to. I'm going to pull over the Bible. I'm going to pull over a Quran. I'm going to pull over whatever somebody's coming to me to say to get what I need done. I'm going to do that. But I understand everyone's not like that. So you can't always ask your ancestors, hey, I get you want me to speak. You want to speak to me through the Bible. Can we figure out something else? Can we find a medium ground? So, but yeah, great question.
Hi. So my question is about building relationships and specifically altars with different types of spirits. So like, if you're someone who, is like Christian and you put on a cross and then you are the altar, like ancestral altars are traditionally built a certain way, but then you feel called by a spirit that, and from a religion that you're not specifically familiar with, can you rely on your intuition, or do you need to do research before you build the altar? Do you run the risk of, hurting that potential relationship by doing things wrong? And also, because different spirits require different things and like more than others, how do you balance building those relationships? And is it ever beneficial to just say, I don't have the capacity to build this relationship right now?
Yes, for sure. Great questions. Yeah, so throughout my spiritual journey, I've had a lot of different spirits across different pantheons. I feel reaching out to me in different ways. And they don't have altars. Like, they don't. I've had Paul Bagira reach out to me. I've had Ursula Danto reach out to me. Like, I've had different, entities across spiritual frameworks. And when I was new, I was really excited by this, and I was like, oh, now I gotta build an altar for Paul Bagira. I gotta build an altar for this person. And I'm like, wait. First of all, I need to research. I need to talk to people who are part of that tradition. Because many spirits, at least in an Africana context, these are not traditions that are I'm not going to say self-guided, but they're very hierarchical, and you kind of have to go to someone to get access. And that doesn't make them right or wrong. There's plenty of traditions, especially more New Age traditions, where you actually are to focus more on your intuitive guide and what you feel. And I think that is present in Africana tradition, but it's tradition. Like you can't do this if you haven't done that. You can't access this if you haven't spoken to this person. You can't see this fully if you haven't gone through an initiation. These are often very initiatory practices. So but that doesn't mean that, Oshun was talking to me before I was initiated. So that doesn't mean that you can't feel connection to these deities. But I think it's pointing you then to research, to read, or to talk to someone. But I know that that's not always accessible. Some of these spirits are, people are just now starting to really write about these traditions because they're oral. So this random, spirit from Senegal, some indigenous spirit from Senegal is coming to you. It's probably no book to see how to build an altar to them. But if that spirit is really wanting to connect with you, you can keep that in mind. But then they'll show you who you need to connect with. They'll show you, you'll meet the practitioner, you'll meet the priest, you'll meet, maybe that means you need to go to Senegal, So, yeah, I always encourage people to not just, intuition is huge. Our consciousness is huge. But in this Africana spiritual system context, you don't just want to only rely on that. Like I said, because there are rules, there are rules and regulations. I feel like you had another part of the question.
Is it ever beneficial to just say, I don't have capacity for this?
Absolutely. I did not have an altar for Ursula. I did not have an altar for none of these people. Spirits. Because the spirits, once they see that you're interested and that you see them, they're like, oh, I like you, I like her, they will cling. And it's up to you to decide if you want to cling back. Whatever. Like when I had Ursula come to me last time, I had a bunch of Ursula stuff, and I was like, I love it. It's a lot to maintain relationship to spirit. They are needy. They need offerings. It pricey, start paying for stuff, you gotta pay for this and liquor. Like it becomes a lot, which is why I always encourage people to not rush into priesthood. I know a lot of people want to become priests in specific traditions, and if that's your calling, wonderful. But basically, when you have a priest, you're signing up to take care of spirits for the rest of your life, a specific deity for the rest of your life. That's work, that's time, that's energy, that's money. So you can always say, or like, I appreciate you. Is there a specific message that you have for me? Or are you showing me a part of my ethnicity that I wasn't showing? Are you pointing me to a specific region or tribe of people that now I know that I have? But that doesn't mean you always have to actively build a relationship with them. I said no to many in spirit, even ancestors. So just because they are around doesn't mean that you have to say yes. Just like people. You have people want to be your friend with a I don't want to be your friend. But thank you. Appreciate you. Great to see you. Same thing with spirit. Same thing. Having boundaries.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much. That was incredible. Thank you guys for those wonderful questions, really insightful, deep questions. We're going to start wrapping up the private chat portion and start getting into the book signing. So for those of you who have copies of your books, we're going to start forming a line around the room, starting at the air conditioner. And you'll get a moment to chat with Juju. And if you have any questions that didn't get asked at the moment, perhaps you'll be able to do that. Now, don't talk your head off now, y'all. You got to think with everybody, okay? So, keep that in mind. There are so many great ways to learn from Juju, whether it's by reading the book, listening to her podcast, reaching out to her through social media, website, etc. But definitely feel free to spend a few moments while you get your book signed. If you don't have a physical copy of the book, we do have just a couple left. Y'all sold us out, okay? So we have just a couple copies left if you need one, so feel free to step over to the register and Nuri will help you out. Also, because we're going to have a line, don't feel like you need to stand on the line. You can help yourself to checking out the back. We have a little bit of retail left from our close down of the retail. So we've got a bunch of herbs, books, some crystals, some incense, few candles available, and everything back there is 50% off. Oh, really? Okay, and once they're gone, they will be gone. So I know every time you come here, I'll be making you shop. I know, girl. No, just you stand on the line over there. I'm gonna keep an eye on you. You can't go to the back. No. But yes, if you want to do some shopping, like wait for the line to get a little shorter, things like that, feel free to do so. No need to rush. You can mingle, chat with each other, all that good stuff. We have to do for another hour. Okay, so we're not rushing out of here. I also want to let you know about some of the materials that you have on your chairs. You are going to see a brochure that says Become a Member. This is our membership flyer. There are numerous different ways in which you can support this space and all of the programming, events, workshops, and education that we're trying to bring to the community here in the Bronx, but also virtually. Okay, you can become an events member of the space, which means that you will be able to, depending on your membership level, get discounted tickets or even free tickets to events like this. Okay, and we have numerous events every month. From workshops next week, we're going to be having a fire cider making workshop where you get to make your own batch of fire cider. We have lectures, we have book signings coming up, parties, all types of things. So if coming out, if getting in touch with the community and stuff like that is what you're interested in, consider becoming an events member. You can become a workshare member. So if you need space to work out of, my spiritual entrepreneurs, my students, my remote workers, this room, when we're not hosting events, actually has 2 workstations with wireless printing and free Wi-Fi and office supplies, complimentary coffee and tea, and everything that you're looking for in a co-working space, but with the extra additional spiritual element. You can also get a candle and Palo Santo if you need. We've got private rooms that you can reserve and all that good stuff. And then we have our virtual coven membership. So if you're looking to learn more about magic and witchcraft from like a student perspective, we have an online portal with dozens of classes on candle magic, meditation, crystal healing, and a virtual coven where you can hang out with other practitioners, talk about spells, talk about rituals, and learn more about your own practice from other practitioners. So we've got a lot of options for you guys. Something really special that's inside your membership flyer is a gift certificate. I wanted to say thank you guys so much in a big way. So you're going to find a gift certificate that will get you 1 free month of membership here in our workshare space. So if you need a quiet, cozy place to work during the day, if you're thinking about hosting an event like this for yourself, maybe you're a poet, a writer, an artist, and you want to get people together, you need a space to do it, you can do that here. And so I wanted to give you guys a free month's membership. That membership expires at the end of the year, so definitely make sure to sign up and lock in your membership there. And all the information about our memberships and everything you need to know is on our website. You can always reach out if you have any questions. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you again. We'll get these chairs out of the way so everyone's got lots of space. For those of you who like to shop, feel free to head to the back, and me and Marie will be buzzing around to answer all your questions. Okay? Thank you. Yes. Water? Absolutely. Got you. Yeah. For sure.
So my name is Tanisha, but I have a question. Okay. Okay. Go for it. How do you spell it? No, you can get another bag. That's not you want one. Laura, second that. Is that maybe the 3 wolf is in there?
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Their name is so you can purchase our online classes, but the coven is the space where we talk.
Now the 22
membership.
Here, I'll just give you another one.
The only thing that we give you free access to our webinars. So that would be our webinars,
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm joy and blessing Oh no, she's just Okay, yes.
So one is for me, one is
Okay.
for my daughter, and one is for her best friend.
Oh,
Peek ahead and show you you're spelling alone.
I
So
know.
my daughter just graduated.
Oh,
so-
my goodness.
And a couple of people spoke to me about her, so I thought you could
Okay.
sign it for her. I'm Mira, it's AIMIRA.
These chairs out of your room. I'll take it to the back.
Yeah. try to do some. I guess my question is, what's the academic portion of your research and study?
In regards to like spiritual tradition,
Yeah.
I feel kind of very spiritual.
And feel free to sit in one of these chairs too.
You can stand.
Oh.
Okay, let me in the back.
Of course.
Yes.
Okay.
We want to say that.
Okay.
Yes.
You said J-A-D-E.
And will you be paying passion for
The research that I've done is mostly transformation.
What's the most random thing?
Okay. And your total is 2059 today.
So, I found myself on my own.
Yeah, whatever items you find over there.
Not bringing it on here.
Bye, witches. Thanks for tuning in.
And then your 50 tab is right here. 2059 is your total.
So if I did go back to school, it would probably be cool. So, but I noticed there's a lot of that
Where you were like your receipt. We don't prepare a lot.
Oh,
A lot of scholarship. Actually, everything's digital.
Oh, well, yeah. Or you need.